That way you can unmute.
Okay.
So you're ready to talk.
Okay. So I'm gonna
Okay.
stop it.
And then you can stop the
everyone.
Hello, Wiley's here.
Oh, hello, Mr. Wiley.
How are you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. We
Well,
have about 1 minute before we start
yes, ma'am.
our workshop.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Wiley. This is Andre with Hilltop.
Oh, good evening, Andre.
Good evening, sir. I appreciate your email today, and I had called back and left a voicemail for you.
Yes, Wiley, thank you for doing that. I'll reach out to you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Chris with Hilltop.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
How are you doing, sir?
How are you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's okay.
Fine.
Okay, so I do have 6 o'clock right now, and I see Councilman Martinez, and I believe Councilman Flores. Is that you?
The one and only.
Okay. So we do have a quorum. We are missing Councilman Lopez at this time.
And let me text them because we actually don't have a quorum. It's a special meeting that takes 4.
Oh, special. I thought it was a workshop.
It's a workshop, but
Okay.
workshops are considered special meetings.
So you need,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
Let me text them real quick. I hope he can make it. You know, in the past, I've always said a workshop is a workshop, just as long as we have a quorum, and the TML corrected me on it. Even it says on the website that it is considered a special meeting. Well, okay. Good. Hey, you know we have a 6 o'clock meeting today. Yeah, the workshop for the wastewater treatment plant discussion. No, the 28th for the this
Municipal complex.
Yeah, yeah, it takes 4, I believe. I unless the council wants to start, and I might be wrong, but that's I've heard in TML. It said a workshop is actually considered a special meeting because it's called for. So.
Or if we need the 4th one.
Can you log in, Aro?
You've got 3 members.
Yeah. Then I'm gonna get on the website real quick. I'm gonna excuse myself, get on the website just real quick to make sure, okay? I just don't want to be in violation of the open meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, Alberto. So I'm gonna check on real quick on the TML website, make sure we're okay. But I'm gonna ensure that on a workshop, and I don't find it like, I mean, we've done many workshops before just with 3 council members, but it says here that
But we're still doing it with 3 councilmen.
well,
You still have 3
well-
council members.
You know what I mean?
yeah, but a special meeting calls for four council.
¿Sabes qué? If you want to send me the password and all that, because I don't have it with me, and I can put it on there and just listen. That's all I can do.
All right, I'm gonna screenshot the ID and the password, and so you can log in.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, Alvaro say he's gonna log in. Y'all can still hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah, loud and clear.
okay, I'm still gonna be. I apologize, guys. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm more than sure that I'm on it already. So give me a second. Meantime, I think Councilman Lopez is gonna be logging on.
Not yet.
I see Councilman Lopez.
He came in.
Okay. So now we do have everyone, Councilman Martinez present.
Hello.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alvaro.
Howdy.
I'll get back on screen a little bit. Y'all
Hey.
continue. I'm just gonna be reviewing this real quick.
Okay. but
Yeah,
we
I'll
do
be
have-
in and out. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I'll be in and out. But I'm trying to get rid my truck. Dealing with my truck.
So Councilman Martinez, at this time, we do have 4.
Okay, great.
So we do have a quorum. Now would like to start the workshop at 6:08 PM.
6:08, okay.
Right, thank you. Everyone, thank you for joining us tonight for this evening. Councilman Martinez did request this workshop on the infrastructure, so we will be discussing the infrastructure needs for the city and wastewater treatment plant with the financial advisors, which is Mr. Andre Ayala, Chris Vela for the financial advisors, and we have the planner, Mr. Wiley is on the call, and we have our engineers, Hector Castaneda and Robert Vieira. So Councilman Martinez, this is your agenda item. You have the floor.
Okay, I was already almost there, but anyhow. Yeah, I had asked for this meeting to take place because I wanted some feedback and some input from everybody that can maybe possibly help us in expanding or preparing, or starting the process to start working on the future of the wastewater treatment plant. Because as we all know, this besides the Somerset project that wants to come in, we have other development that's also approaching the city faster than what we think. So we need to be ready and to have the capacity of the new development coming in. We have to pretty much extend or enlarge the wastewater treatment plant or possibly build another one. So I'm just hoping that we have all the right team members to put our heads together and see what where can the city start the process to either build another wastewater treatment plant or enlarge the one we have right now to accommodate the future development of these projects coming in. I know there's grants out there with Texas Water Board we can approach, but maybe somebody, either one of the developers, Wiley or that's got a lot of knowledge with or dealing that they've dealt before with the Texas Water Board. Maybe we can help us out, or Robert Riera with LNB, Hector. Any help, any advice, would just to start the process and move forward with this, because it's coming. The development is coming, and the growth is coming, and we need to be ready before they actually start building.
Councilman Martinez, this is Robert Vieira. I know I received an email from Mr. Ayala today, and it was sent to Wiley, which I think is a critical information that we need to know from Wiley as far as, how much water and wastewater usage that they're going to anticipate off of their development. And then we can go from there and figure out what is the best route as far as, are we going to expand the existing wastewater treatment plant, or are we looking at maybe building a new one in a new location? But first off, we need to know from Wiley as far as what their anticipated demand is going to be, and I think he's working on that. Or are you still working with Murph, Wiley?
Oh yeah, yes sir.
Okay.
Real quick, gentlemen, that you're correct on that, Robert. I'm sure Wiley has given us a lot of input as far as what's the plan on the development, how much waste we're going to be receiving. But also we need to consider the contract with TIPCO. They're not in operations right now, so we need to revisit that contract and see what negotiations we can make, or maybe just cut them off, because I know they're in their contract, they're going to be, it says that they're going to be disposing so much wastewater in a treatment plant. Well, that's not happening right now, right? Other than stormwater.
Stormwater.
That's it. Their administration, I don't know if it's up and running, but I know their mill is not, they're not full capacity. So that should alleviate also some wastewater coming into our wastewater treatment plant. So there's a good possibility that we won't be fully capacity, just not fully capacity, but I might.
It gives time to play, in other words, you're saying, this with existing capacity. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes.
But eventually we're gonna, and so yeah, and I think we talked about this last time, Mr. Martinez, and initially we might be able to use some of that capacity at the existing wastewater treatment plant. But the long-term goal is, we're either going to have to expand in that area where the existing one is at, or
definitely
we're going to have to look at building a new plant at a new location. And we just need to look at the different options and decide what we feel is going to be best in the best interest of the city for not only development right now, but long-term development. So.
Right. I'm just putting it out there because, I mean, they're not in operations, and I know that we're supposed to. Last I've heard, when we first came in 2012, we were told that they were going to be putting about 27% into the wastewater plant. How true that is, I'm not sure. That's just what we're told, and the mayor also passed that on to us, to the council, that they were supposed to be putting at 27% into a wastewater plant. So I'm just saying that it's something that we haven't done in a couple of years as well. negotiate their water rates. Do you recall that, Norma?
The water rates are the same as in what we sell as an on commercial account. So there's still quite a bit of usage that they're
Right.
using, but there doesn't seem to be any movement as far as uh, employees or anything like that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, we need to consider that also too. We need to review the contract as well. Their, the developers agreement with them and see, where we can save capacity in the wastewater plant.
Hey, Robert, this is Wiley. I got that contract today from Judge Cribb's office because I was curious about it, and I sent it to Pablo. And in it, it talks about the amount of usage that the city is committing to them. When you make your calculations, and we've talked here recently, are
Mhm.
your calculations based on actual usage or committed usage?
Committed usage. It should be based on committed usage.
Okay.
So
Well, the
if
reason
we're committed to TPCO for 100,000 gallons, our calculations have to include 100,000 gallons.
okay. All right. That was my question on there. And one of the things that Mayor Zambrano had told me continually about that plant was that the way their drainage is set up, that the water from there drains into the manholes and somehow ends up back at the wastewater treatment plant and overflows that. Is that correct?
Correct. And we talked to him several years ago, but we still need I guess Norma or somebody not Norma going out there, but need to send somebody out there whenever it rains. And I guess we could tell real easily because what they were doing in the past is they didn't have anywhere for their drainage, for it to drain. And somehow or another, and I think they were doing it purposely, they were somehow or another pumping it into the manholes. And then it was going into our lift station. And of course, that lift station pumps to eventually it gets to our wastewater treatment plant. So they were draining their whole property there into our lift station, which we mentioned them several years
Pop
back.
up the whole side of the city.
Say the whole side of the city.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, if the amount that they have going in there. Well, let me ask you this, Hector. You might remember this, but several years ago, one of the first things that I did with the mayor was that we talked to, and you were there. We talked to the water judge about establishing Gregory CCN, and the water judge purposely left them out of it, and they're not in the service area there, even though y'all had supplied them. Even though the city had already submitted the thing to them. And I on another deal, I spent quite a bit of time talking with Judge Krebs and Desiree Voth, and that Chinese plant is defaulted considerably on their agreement with the county is about concerning tax abatements. Haven't lived up to their employee thresholds and the number of jobs, et cetera. And they went back and renegotiated all of their stuff because of that, and have got them on a sliding scale on their tax abatements based on the actual number of employees and what their real deal is. So I would suggest that the city go back to them and do the same thing and say, look, we're, got this committed to you. You're not using it. You're not, if you read that agreement, the city spent several $1,000,000 to accommodate them, and they're not recouping their money. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. You're reserving 100,000 gallons of usage a day. But Norma, it'd be worthwhile for you to look up and find out how much they're actually paying for each month.
They're actually metered. So whatever goes through the meter is what we're actually charging them.
And that's what I'm saying. That, I mean, if they're just using, I mean, the last few times I've been by over there, there's only one car parked out by that little office administrative building over there.
Yeah,
So,
so Wiley, the water and the wastewater for TPC, or they're two different agreements, I guess, if you want to call it that. For the water side, and they still haven't done it, I don't think they have, correct me if I'm wrong, Norma, but has TPCO, they're not purchasing water directly from San Water District for their processed water, right?
Not to my knowledge.
So that if you
As
look at
far
that
as we know.
agreement, within a 4-year time period, they were supposed to have been purchasing their processed water directly from San Water District and pay for that cross connection from San to their site, which I don't think has happened. So at any time, the city, if they wanted to, could decide that we're not going to provide them with that processed water, that they need to get it from San But I mean, that's just something the city, you know, right now, I think you're making money off of them purchasing water, right, Norman, I would think.
All we have is, yeah, we're just selling them potable water. So
But at any time, we can stop from servicing or providing them their processed water. And on the wastewater side, in that agreement, all it said that they would be able to, on the wastewater side, it was the city would be able to provide them up to 100,000 gallons per day, but only in domestic wastewater, not their processed wastewater. So, and I can't see them in 100,000 gallons per day just through their administration building. Like you said, there's nobody there.
exactly. And the
But
point
that's something that the city's going to have to, I mean, we need to look into that, and that TPCO is a totally different animal than everything else. Right now, we're about 50% capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. We're going to have the Glades come online, hopefully here pretty soon. Probably going to have other development. So no, even if we just, let's forget about TPCO, just with future development, we're going to hit the capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. And then with your development over there with Somerset, Wiley, we're going to, you know, depending on how fast you develop that property, we're going to by far exceed the capacity of the existing wastewater treatment plant. So I think what we want to focus on right now is just, Wiley, what your development and what demand on the water and wastewater that you're going to need. And then we, as a city, can sit down and just throw that all into a model and then calculate what we're going to have to do for the future. You know,
well, nothing has changed since the last video conference we had when we were talking about the RV park. And I stated that the city, we went through the process and we've got a TCEQ permit to build a lift station with the capability for 500 single family units and 585 single family residences. And that's what we intend to do. As I mentioned with y'all previously on my development in Sinton, I have now a written agreement with Brazelton Homes / DR Horton, who has bought them out, that they're going to take down 100 home sites a year in Sinton. They want to do the same thing in Gregory and want to do it as soon as possible. But I haven't been able to felt comfortable to execute anything because nothing's changed again since the last time we talked. You know, at the meeting we were in December, at the end of the meeting, y'all came out of executive committee and directed the attorneys in San Antonio to expedite completing and finalizing our development agreement, which they've had for over 8 months at that time. And just to report back, we have called them weekly since then. And as of this past Friday, our attorney in San Antonio, Ross Martin and Dan Martinez with the Winstead Group, they have not heard back from them. They have not replied to a single email or a single phone call. So I'm exactly where I was with y'all at our last meeting.
So unfortunately, Wiley, you weren't at on the last workshop that we had. And the city council members decided that they wanted to move forward with looking at your development, and I think Mr. Andre Ayala sent you an email requesting some information.
I received that today, yes.
Yeah, so I think there was a consensus, and the council members or the mayor pro tem can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a consensus that they would like to work with you, but the process is sort of going to have to start from scratch, and it's going to go through Mr. Ayala. But they're interested in not only the residential, but they also want to look at the commercial, multifamily, and industrial all at one time. So that, and I think
that's fine. That's fine. And Andre and I'll have a talk tomorrow, and I'll bring him up to date, or I can do it with y'all right now. The volume of business that we've got lined up to do.
And I think Murph has sent me some of that information. But if you can just submit it to Mr. Ayala for his information, and we can just take it from there.
Well, let me ask you a question.
I had some information on the single family build out, but like I said, the city's interested in everything, and you developing everything.
Well, I've submitted to y'all a industrial site layout with graphics, drawings of buildings. I've done all that. I've submitted to you a preliminary plat over a year ago that I keep getting put off to do single family residentials. So I'm capable of doing all that. I would like a little, and I appreciate what you're telling me. I was told at that meeting last week that it was only going to be about water and wastewater. And I was already on the agenda for the city of Sinton to get my PID district approved there. Yeah. And couldn't change that. But I'll be more than happy to provide the stuff to Mr. Ayala tomorrow and talk with him in detail about that. And if I'm not mistaken, Andre, you're familiar with Ross Martin and Dan Martinez, aren't you?
That is correct. And Wiley and Robert, let me just do a brief intro here. So Wiley, we unfortunately missed you last week. I guess there was some confusion on the topic at hand. And what the city has directed us to do is to figure out how to put this together. I'm kind of late to the party, and I understand that there's been some delays. And we're fully committed to assisting the city in partnering up with you and your organization to do a development. Now, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to be brought up to speed, partly by you, Wiley, because I don't have the details on what the development plan looks like. And I'm only gonna be coming from the financial side of things. So, representing the city, I would be able to say, okay, here's the potential impact that it has. But most importantly, I think that what we're all looking at here is how do you finance this thing? Because it is truly a private-public partnership.
Right.
You're bringing funds and development. The city will bring some funds, and they have to work with you in the development. So that's what we're trying to figure out here. I don't want to get too much off topic since we're talking wastewater, but that's overall our big picture goal. And Wiley, we have a lot of experience with these kinds of deals. As I was explaining to city council and consultants, we have put a lot of these deals together. I have experience with your attorneys at Winstead. So, you may want to ask them as to what our capabilities are doing these kinds of transactions. And again, tomorrow when you and I get on the phone, I'll have a better feel of what this is, so that we can start putting together the numbers that will make sense for the city.
Okay.
I don't want to comment on anything that has been done before because I don't have the context.
Sure.
Or all the information. So, when Robert said we'll start from scratch, it's mostly for my benefit, and I apologize, I'm kind of late to the party, just so that I can understand what's happening, where are we right now, and how do we move forward? Because the most important thing that my client has directed me to do is let's move forward. And part of the implications of moving forward is this wastewater issue. I'm not an engineer, so I don't understand, and I'm not qualified to say how much impact does your development have on the existing sewer plant, or if we need a new one, or an expansion of what we have. So I'm going to rely on the city's engineering experts to tell me that. And then between Chris and myself and the rest of our team, we need to come up with a plan that makes sense for both of you, for the city of Gregory, and then for your organization to move forward, not just with your residential development, but what I understand the potential concept plan looks like, which includes a variety of products, single family, multifamily, industrial, commercial, so all kinds of things that I understand could be put in there. But we need to have a more big picture idea of what we're doing, because if there's going to be an expansion or a new sewer plant, I'm assuming, again, from an engineering standpoint, we need to plan it out a little bit further out into the future.
Well, I would agree with you there, and just so the city council will know, I wholeheartedly endorse your coming onto the team, because everybody I've talked to said that y'all are, if not the most experienced, right at the top of the list, on handling these type of things. I would like to put one caveat in there, in that, irregardless of what the numbers were, we've generated these one time. And then starting 18 months ago, we started doing a project where it was a mixed use, greatly expanded deal in there. And it slowed down because then the mayor didn't want to go any further until we had a development agreement done. And so we submitted it to this law firm that they have been using, like I said, actually in 2019, in the fall, and worked through that and thought we had that all done up until July of last year. And then they changed the attorney within the organization. And since then, we've had little or no contact with them, other than I was actually able to track down the attorney back around Thanksgiving or so. No, excuse me, that's wrong. Back around the end of the summer, that would be handling it, and they couldn't locate any files and couldn't get anything from the city. And Ross and Dan sent them all of our files over to where the agreement was, and we've been sitting there. So my question to you is, do you think it's not better to go ahead and get a development agreement so we both know what rules we're playing by?
Wiley, one of the things that we always advise our clients to do is this. Let's come up with a concept, which you have, and you have already presented to the city. Number two, let's negotiate the concept, which you may have already done. I don't know. And then once that is done, then we need to engineer the concept to come up with what are the implications from an engineering perspective of what this concept will bring. And then once we have that, then we financially model this concept, because we now have the engineering, and we can say, here's how we believe will be the best way to finance it. I understand the whole concept here is to utilize the public improvement district tool and to utilize the tax increment reinvestment zone tool. That's what I understand. And then finally, once you and the city have an agreement, a business agreement, then you unleash the attorneys and they can document what you guys have agreed to do. And then once that document is in place, it's just an execution of what has been agreed to. There's no more negotiation. The negotiations are done. You just execute whatever is documented. That's the process that I generally recommend to all my city clients to follow. And I believe that in this case, I think that we may have focused a little bit too much on the legal, without understanding the business side first. That's my impression. So that's why I'm trying to get up to speed as quickly as I can so that I can assist the city, which will assist you, Wiley, in moving forward as fast as possible.
Okay, and I'll make one more statement on that, and then we'll continue on with the water thing. Just so you'll know,
That's it? Okay.
just so you'll know, this process of forming a PID.
Bueno, 8 and get home.
I'm sorry.
I think Mr. Lopez is taking care of business where his truck, whatever he might have talked, and he came on. So go ahead, Wiley.
Okay, just so you'll know, Andre, Abdi there at MuniCap, who I think you also know, their group came down here and started this, and we got the PID tiers districts formed and got to the point where everything was approved in the Attorney General's office, I believe it is, or whatever the state office is. And Oryx had agreed to buy the bonds. And then it was discovered that the legal description we used for the city of Gregory had not been corrected with their ETJ, and it forced us to start over again. So generating the numbers is not a problem. You know, we can go back and can break down what it costs to develop residential property, what it costs to develop apartment property, what it costs to develop industrial property, all of that. We've got those fixed numbers, and on a per unit basis, they're all the same as the project we're doing in Sinton right now. So when you and I talk tomorrow, I think I can answer any question you want.
Thank you, Wiley. Appreciate it.
Okay.
That explanation that Mr. Ayala gave is very correct, Wiley. And you weren't at the workshop that we had this past week, but I did ask a question about the developers agreement. What was an update? We were asking for. I was asking for an update on it because we did have a discussion with a special counsel in San Antonio, and last we talked about that they were going to work on it and review it and bring it back to us, put it back on the table, and see where we would agree. But all that was put kind of like not to bed, but it was put aside because of all the confusion of the development as far as single family, light industrial, multifamily, commercial. So when Brandon was giving us a presentation, we asked questions. Like I told you a month ago, I was totally in the dark on this. I haven't been updated on your development in almost a year, and I knew it wasn't dead on water, but at the same time, I'm not up to par with what's going on. The rest of the council, we all decided that okay, we were recommended to start from scratch. So I know it's frustrating on your part, Mr. Wiley. You've been waiting for a long time already. You know, I have to say on behalf of the city, we owe you a huge apology for that reason, because I mean, you're not just a developer but an investor, and having to put you off for so long is just not right. But long story short, so it was decided that we need to start from scratch because we need to all be in the same page as to what's going to come in and what we want, what would be good for the city and what not. And so that's something that Mr. Ayala is going to be discussing with you. And then once we, like he said, he explained, once we get back with Mr. Ayala and see where we stand, then the developers agreement can come into play. And after we review that, you know, then that's a legal thing that we'll have to be getting advice from as well.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you saying that, Councilman Martinez. I truly do. And I look forward to working with them. And if we need to start over, we'll start over. But like I said, I've got the facts and figures that I can plug into any model he wants to look at pretty quickly.
Yeah, awesome. And I know we got off subject a little bit, but it also all that has to do with the wastewater treatment plants. So we need to
And the water side too, yes, sir.
Yes, and the water side too as well. And like, I apologize for bringing the typical deal, but I haven't reviewed their agreement with the city, but I just know that they're not in operation, so that's something we need to look into further and see what will help the city out by that means, since they're not in operations.
And along those lines on them, Robert, let me ask you again, because I
Uh-huh.
thought I heard you say something different the first time than when we expanded on that. But when you calculate your present usage of the wastewater treatment plant as it sits today,
Mhm.
do you allocate the entire $100,000 committed to TIPCO in those figures?
So are you talking about what we submit to TCEQ, or are you just talking about in general what?
Well, how do you calculate that you're at a certain amount of usage? Is it a
So,
physical calculation that day on the
yes.
property, or is
So it's
it
a physical calculation. It's the information that we provide to TCEQ on a monthly basis, and it's an average. It's a daily average. So no, if we have allocated 100,000 gallons per day to TPCO and they're not using 100,000, that's just something that we have in the back of our head, in the back of our mind, that we will have to supply them with that.
So theoretically, if they opened up tomorrow and started doing full capacity and needed that $100,000, you would be severely overtaxed right now.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Same thing with like your development, your housing development. Of course, it's going to take a year or so, or maybe longer than a year in order to build 100, 200 homes. But
Yeah.
we would still be liable for providing you wastewater service.
Well, let me ask you this. When we were on that virtual meeting here a month or so ago, you were going to look into to see if there was available land to expand the existing plant at its present location. What did you find out from that?
I think there's, and I'd rather not talk about available land or anything like that right now, because that's still part of the long-term overall plan or long-term planning. So what I think right now, what's going to be the best option, or one right now, and this is just 30,000 foot level planning. You know what I mean? There's nothing really on pen and paper. But I think the plan right now would be to build a lift station to service your development in the interim, right? With so many gallons per day, they would keep the existing plant in compliance with the city's permit, wastewater permit. And then that would give us a couple of years in order to build a new plant somewhere on the north side of town. And then, once that plan is up and running, then we would free up, we would convert or move over all that, the demand that was going to the existing plant. We'd move it over to the new plant, which would give us additional capacity, or back the additional capacity at the existing plant. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
But that's why we need to know from you on the planning side is, okay, what are you looking at doing? Are you going to do it in phases? What is your demand for this first phase? Just sort of things like that.
Well, I've got an apartment builder that's ready to build a 300 unit apartment now on the property that we've got zoned for apartments. I've got a half dozen light industrial users that probably are going to employ on those 6 people somewhere between 80 and 100 people in there. And then we've got the demand for the D.R. Horton development of housing as many as we can. But let me back up 1 second there, Robert, and something just to think about. Since we started this, the landscape has changed. And directly across our north property line, across that little county road there, Now windmills have gone up everywhere there. And do you have any idea about the capability of putting a wastewater treatment plant, assuming you've got a close discharge permit area, which we would have, in an area that's bordered by them? I know there's a fall down radius around some of those windmills, but you know, that might be something that we could pick up some land adjacent to us for a relatively cheap price, because there's not anything commercial you can do on that or residential wise. Do you know if those windmills would affect the location of a plant, or have any
No,
idea?
it shouldn't affect the location of our plan unless you said like there's a fall down radius for those windmills, but I mean, I'd have to,
And there is, Robert.
all we have is buffer zones. We have buffer zones that we need to meet where you can't have any new development or.
Well, I actually saw the agreement between former Judge Terry Simpson and the windmill builders, and the part of the agreement, I remember reading very well that there is a 1,000 feet radius. No residential or commercial can be built within 1,000 feet radius of the actual structure. I remember reading that part in that agreement.
I wonder if they'll consider a wastewater treatment plant though. I mean, because there's no one really there's no one.
Well, that was my
occupying it.
point.
There's nobody
That,
occupying
you know, that we could, rather than utilize property that would be valuable for light industrial, and we could generate tax revenue to the city, if we could just, you know, buy 20 acres or 30 acres across the little county road that's within the footprint, so to speak, of those things, and otherwise they can't use it, and then work a deal with them where, you know, sometimes they may get included in the city and be a user of the product. Because, you know, the way I think about this wastewater treatment plant is we're foolish to only plan a plant just for what we know we need. And I say this because I'm acquiring property all in the area around here quite a bit. And the only 3 places that have wastewater that you can do residential developments right now are Gregory, Sinton, and Taft. And there's going to be other stuff come here industrial wise over the next few years. I mean, there's other stuff in the makings right now. And I would just say, while we're doing this planning, that it should be something that we can get a big enough site where you can plan for future development also.
I agree with that. Totally.
Okay.
You get enough land in order for future.
Right.
If you want, but just make the plant scalable where, just like we were talking about the existing plant, you know, we only have 320, but if there is land available adjacent to it, and if that's one of the routes we decide to go, then you can just build a plant similar to that adjacent to it. Say,
right.
Exactly. We'd look at that same scenario on the north side of town. In other words, purchase enough property so that, you know, if you want to call it phase 1 of the plant can be built, and phase 2 would be an expansion. In other words. But that's why we need to know from you, Wiley, is like, you know, what the demand, full development of your property, you know, what is going to be the demand for water and wastewater, and then we can go from there and
well, and that's what I said.
With a short and long-term plan for how we're going to provide you that water and sewer service.
You know,
pay for it, I guess, is the biggest thing. And Mr. Ayala, that's what he's going to get.
Well, what I believe is that 500, that lift station, as I said, is permitted for 500 multifamily and 585 single family units. And I don't think there'll be 585 single family units. And I don't think that there'll be 500 multifamily units. And and retail and industrial use far less than that. So what I'm saying is that amount that's allocated for that lift station should suffice our development.
Are we just talking your development, or we're also talking, I mean, we're looking at the commercial
That's right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
multifamily.
Yeah, the multi, like I said, we're going to have, I think we'll end up with 300 units of multifamily, and we'll probably end up with about 300 units in single family. And then the balance of it is going to be in a variety of light industrial, retail, and business office warehouse type things, which all of them use far less than your requirements for single family units. And so that's why I think what's allocated for it, the 500 multifamily units and the 585 single family units should service that whole 400 acres.
Okay, but we're talking about just a lift station, right?
Yes, sir. That, as I said, that lift station is those are the permitted values on that lift station.
Well,
And
with that, the permitted values on that lift station is way over what the permitted capacity of our,
actual wastewater treatment plant.
yeah. So that plant, and that's something we need to look at, Wiley, and that's why we're starting from, I want to say starting over from scratch, not only to bring Mr. Ayala up to speed and a lot of the council members, myself included, because a lot of the dealing, we weren't involved in a lot of or weren't aware of a lot of the initial planning, if you want to put it that way. So I think just starting from scratch, that's a lot of things things that we might be able to look at is, well, what size lift station do we actually need? Does it need to be that big, or can it be a smaller lift station in the interim in order to pump a certain amount of wastewater to the existing plant, and then that gives us a little bit of time in order to build a new wastewater treatment plant on that side of town, and then move everything over to the new plant, and then that frees up the capacity on the existing plant. So that's all part of the planning process, Wiley, that I think initially a lot of us were not involved in. So.
Yeah, another thing, Mr. Wiley, if you can submit to Norma, I know you already have your latest and greatest plan for what development you want, because like I said, I don't know if that was the latest and greatest that Ms. Brandon McDougal presented to the council last workshop, but as soon as she put that the slideshow or the graphics, I was like, wait a minute, I thought in the north side was supposed to be, the 88 acres was gonna be residential, multi and single family, but now it's showing it as light industrial. And
Well, let me interrupt you right there. She has had those plans over a year, and for her to just show them to y'all for this first time, that's something y'all need to address.
Yeah. We agree, Wiley. And that's why I think Mr. Murray, he apologized early on and said, hey, unfortunately, it didn't happen the way we all would like it to happen. But we're wanting to start over and work with you, Wiley, and move as fast as possible. I mean, I'm willing to work with you, and we're trying to plan out what's best for the city.
No, I understand.
Well, both of it, not just the city, but for you also. It might, what we come up with. We want.
I understand completely. Here's the minimum I'm going to do is build the light industrial thing and the apartments on 250 acres. If we go into a PID tier scenario, then we will develop and bring into the city the 200 acres of Kerry Locke's property that has all the retail available to it. And we do have companies that want to put retail out there right now, but Mr. Locke is of the, just as I said at our last meeting, he's not willing to be annexed into the city unless we have, a PID tiers scenario to do that. And so that's, what we're all hoping for and wanting to do. And if what we've thought for the last 2.5 or 3 years, that was going to happen here. So if we need to start over, we'll start over. And
Wiley, I think that's that's the direction that we're looking at, and that's where Mr. Ayala's expertise is going to come into play. He's going to look at all the numbers and say, hey, we think this is the best route for the city and the developer, you know, whether it's PID or TERS, or, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different options that we can go with. And Mr. Ayala needs to look at the numbers and have discussions with you and myself, and then just say, hey, we think, and then the city council, and just decide, hey, this is the best route we think is best for everyone involved. And it could include a PID and a TERS, I mean, or reimbursement agreement, or, I mean, Mr. Ayala is the one with the expertise on that. And
sure,
I think he'll guide us in the right direction. So I mean, I think it's going to be a lot different now, Wiley, than before. I can tell you that. There's more direction and more people involved in wanting to get this going and moving. So I think it's a lot different now.
well, I really appreciate that. I mean, because like I said, it was a year, well, as I told y'all in December at the city council, it just so happened it fell that day. It was a year ago exactly that the Exxon people called me and wanted us to develop a industrial park for them. Mm-hmm. And it was over 2 weeks before I ever got a return phone call from anybody in the city to even talk about it. And even with that type of backing, it took months. Well, that's all water under the bridge. Let's just start over.
Sorry about that, Why I understand. I mean, when was the first time we talked? Was it a year or maybe longer than a year ago when we met there at City Hall? And you showed us that plan, I remember, but I guess it never got to anyone else. But you said water under the bridge, let's start over. And it
was submitted to the city. I'll put it that way.
We start over and let's move as fast as we can, of course, with the council's blessings and everything.
So what would be the best scenario, just a ballpark thought, to move forward with a wastewater treatment plant? Pending on your development, Wiley, we start out with a lift station, or would it be ideal to just not use that money towards a lift station and just put it towards a wastewater plant, since it's going to have to be built in the future for future? I mean, the city
I've got to build a lift station.
Yeah, he has to.
Capability to do anything, and I've, as I said, I've sold, or I'm contracted to sell a site for the apartments, and I've got people coming out to Kazoo that are the Exxon vendors, and if I can't build something for them, then everybody loses out. I'm going to tell y'all a story, and just so y'all will understand the magnitude of the problems that have gone on in your city the last year. As I said, Mr. Guilfoyle with Exxon called me, and I'm not saying this to be derogatory or anybody. I'm just telling you the honest truth. Mr. Guilfoyle called me the first week in December a year ago and asked me would I meet with him. And he called me through, he called Foster Edwards, and Foster set the meeting up. I went over there and met with him and Brandon Marshall, that's their public relations guy.
Maxwell, yes.
And he came in, Mr. Guilfoyle, and said, look, I've got a problem and you've got a problem and I've got a solution for it. And he said, I've been working here 2.5 years on this project and been working with Gregory, and nothing's changed. It looks just like it did 2.5 years ago. I've given them $2.5 million for their wastewater treatment plant. I just made them a commitment for $5 million for their municipal building. And that's all the money I can give them. I can't do anything else. And he said, but we still, as Exxon, have an obligation to try and improve our neighborhoods. He says, you have got some property that is inside the city limits of Gregory. If you will dedicate it to a light industrial park, I've got about 80 to 90 of my vendors that will be here for the life of the project, 80 years. And they will be what we call our millwrights. They keep the plant going. Some of them will start here while we're building. Some of them will move forward. And he said, if you will develop a light industrial park for me, I will talk to every one of them and we will give them a financial incentive to go into your park if the property is inside the city limits of Gregory, so that we can increase their ad valorem tax base. That's my goal. He says, I can't give them any more money, but I can help them increase their tax base. And if you will do that, I will turn over to you every one of those customers that comes in here when they do their orientation. And this past month, we've had several of them in here, and we've already given them plans to do build-a-suit buildings for them. But that's how that developed. The next morning, I called over to the city of Gregory, and left that message. And I didn't get a return call for 2 weeks. When I did get a phone call, it said, I'm not real sure that that's what's best for Gregory. And then it was a couple of months before we ever got anything after that. And that's when I hired Philip Ramirez to help me get this thing off high center. But having an opportunity like that for me and for the city of Gregory to sit dormant the last 14 months is almost a sin. And that's out there. That light industrial thing can happen this year. That apartment complex can happen this year. We can have D.R. Horton building houses there in 2022. Won't happen this year. Can't get it done fast enough. But as soon as those things happen, then you're going to have people buying commercial and retail property on the highway out there. And that would be annexed into your property, and you would have sales tax revenue, which you don't have now. And that's my frustration. It's not like we've been sitting here. I mean, I've spent a fortune having plans done and submitting them to your planner people and not getting a response. So I am thrilled to death to be able to discuss all this with Mr. Ayala tomorrow. And I will provide him everything that he asked for. I just asked from y'all, if we're going to do this, let's do it and take some direction and get it done. But I mean, I hear what he's saying about, okay, we'll wait after the development agreement's done. But for the last year, I've been told we need to get this done before we want to talk to you about the site again. So I'm going to do what he asked, and I look forward to working with y'all.
Great, that's awesome, Mr. Wiley. And by doing so, that's the start of the process. That should give Mr. Ayala and Mr. Robert Vieira, and I'm not going to say an accurate number, but a close number to see not just about your GPDs on this Somerset development, but how we can approach this wastewater plant sooner, I guess, because you said you do need that lift station, and that is right, but we also, I feel like we still need another wastewater treatment plant.
You're correct, Councilman Martinez, that we do need another wastewater treatment plant, but that's going to take, a couple of years. So that's why we need the lift station initially, is to service that first phase, if you want to call it, of their development. And then that'll give us the time in order to, well, we don't have a lot of it, but they'll give us time in order to develop the plans for a new wastewater treatment plant and determine what size, get the funding, start construction. I mean, that's probably 2 years down the road. So,
Okay. Also, would it be ideal to start the process as re-amending the permits for through TCEQ for what we have right now?
as far as looking at maybe re-rating it, you're talking about, as far as maybe,
Yes.
yeah, all of that. We can start that quickly. And then also, you know, looking at the lift station, what size lift station, because Wiley, I think, if I remember correctly, that lift station was way oversized, but I mean.
Well, those numbers that I told you, it was, and it was a two-phase deal that would put in one pump initially, and then a second pump like 2 years down the road after something was done. I mean, you'd have to ask Murph about that.
Yeah, I'll talk to Murph about that and get all the figures as far as what the demand and everything. So what we're looking at maybe, Wiley, is just making a smaller lift station in order to be able to provide service for your initial phase, whatever the initial phase is going to be, whether it's the residential and the industrial.
Well, I think what it'll be the apartments and the light industrial. I mean, that's the things that can happen this year.
So those are just conversations we're going to have Wiley, with you and Murph, and I guess Mr. Ayala, if he wants to be involved.
Talking about the water and wastewater, and again, I'm not here to lecture or anything, but just so everybody's aware, because it's become abundantly clear to me in the last year that not all the discussions that took place were relayed to the city council. But this past month, I supplied Robert with a letter, and I sent a copy of it over to Pablo that I think he should distribute, that came from the Texas Water Board. And it was from Isaiah McDaniel, who is the president of it. And, you know, Gregory, when we first started talking with them, and I think this was in 2018, we attended, the mayor, myself, Norma, and Doug Dowler attended a meeting in Beeville. And they gave a symposium on the different things and different ways that small towns could get their wastewater treatment plants financed. And initially, we didn't have much luck. They just kind of said you had to get in line until we were able to get the South Texas regional manager over there, and her name is Mariah Lowy, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, and I can't pronounce it either, so you're good.
Okay, so she determined, after seeing all the activity that was going on down here, that Gregory could be designated as an emergency hotspot, much the way Cotulla was done 8 or 9 years ago when the Eagleford shale boom took place, and invited the mayor to submit an application with designation and have a survey done in the March by March 1st of the following year. There was an economic analysis to show that, you know, Gregory was below norm, but below average incomes, etc. And so they started the process on that, and they went through a grading system where they graded all the cities that made applications to have wastewater improvements, and that the bottom 10 of them, I should say the other way, the top 10, the most needies, got special consideration. Now, the water board does not give grants on wastewater. They make low interest loans that are ticked off of what the state of Texas sells them for. And typically they would make an 80% loan, and they could be up to 40 years at around 2% interest. And that the city would have to come up with 20%. But if you grade it high enough, then that 20% could be in the form of 5% debt forgiveness each year for the first 4 years to take care of that. So they started that process. And then in July of 19, that lady came to Corpus Christi and brought a group of her people with them. And they were going to give another seminar similar to that to the city of Corpus Christi.
Windy
And
from the north.
she met there at the City Hall building, the old City Hall building. Norma was there, I was there, Hector was there, the mayor, and the mayor's wife that's on the council, Christina. She was
All right.
there,
Okay.
and she talked to the mayor and said, you know, we're going to find out in August what the rankings are, and, you know, feel good about what you're going to be able to do. And then the mayor disclosed that they had not done that survey yet on there. And she said, well, if that's the case, then you're out of the loop for funding this year. And you will have to go ahead and make reapplication next year, but we're going to go ahead and still rate y'all. So the rating came out in August of 19, and Gregory was rated the 7th or 8th most needy city in the state. And that's not the term they use, but, you know, in dire need of stuff on there. And shortly thereafter, the letter that I'm speaking of, they sent it out, and it was delivered to Hanson, who forwarded it to the mayor, and it sat there almost up to the deadline. And what the letter said was that the city, because of its need factor, was eligible for up to a $40 million loan and eligible for participations if they went ahead and got the study done in the following year. But in order to do it and take care of this particular loan, he had to come to Austin and talk directly with them, and they would see about doing that. And so I got copied on it because at that time we were looking at doing the development on my property. And so I called the mayor and I couldn't talk to him. And I told Judge Cribbs about it. And he said, well, call the guy and see what he says. And so I called Mr. McDaniel and I talked to him. And I said, you know, the city of Gregory is not able to do $40 million. We're looking at doing a wastewater treatment plant, which would be less than $10 million. And he said, yeah, but these funds can be used on anything water related. It can be used for water improvements, repairing your underground drainage system, the drainage for the whole city, anything that was water related. And I said, well, you know, down here we've got different organizations such as the Sandpat Drainage District. Can they participate with it? He said, we encourage it. And so I contacted Deborah Barrett, that's president of that. I contacted Judge Clore about the school district that they could participate in it. I contacted the mayor. I contacted Foster Edwards. Every one of them called the mayor and asked him, that said that they would participate, and we would figure, I mean, if that money could be available for the county groups as a whole, they would participate and help Gregory do this. And the mayor would not go there. And he told Foster, he said, this is not the right time. I don't want to do it. And so it died. And what I'm telling you there, you can call Judge Cribbs and talk to Desiree. You can call Foster. You can talk to Dr. Clore. That's exactly how that happened. That money is still available if you go and ask for it to do that. And I would suggest that somebody within the city take it upon themselves to call Mr. McDaniel and tell him of the straits that you're in. I will be happy to sit on a phone call with anybody and do that. But there are people in the county that can help. I mean, there's much more than a wastewater treatment plant that needs in Gregory. I don't know if anything has been done in the last year, but 18 months ago, I was in a city council meeting there, and the fire department gave a report and reported how they checked fire plugs on their monthly deal, and 4 of the 5 that they checked were inoperable, had black water and scum in them. And the mayor, I think, was right when he had his eye surgery, was on speakerphone and said, "That's what I'm talking about. We need to get a $2 million grant to fix up our water system." So rather than chasing just a money for a wastewater treatment plant, I think this is the time that somebody volunteers, and I will help them, to talk to the Texas Water Board about what is available out there. What can be done, because the wastewater treatment plant is a small part of everything that Gregory needs, and that's just my opinion from on the outside looking in. And I hope I didn't offend anybody by telling me that's what the truth is.
Yes, and I recall pretty much your statement to be exactly correct, because I was informed by the mayor as well on a personal basis, not through a council meeting. But I remember I discussed that email about that $40 million, and he didn't shut me down right away, but he said, no, it's not a grant, it's a loan, and we're not up to par to handle that kind of loan right now. And we didn't discuss this any further, but I do recall the steps that because it was related to that the grading system. If we qualify with the low moderate income community, and we qualify for that extra 5%, maybe forgiven on a smaller loan. But yes, it sounds, you're absolutely correct, Wiley, on everything that you're saying. But we didn't push it further because it was, like I said, I'm not saying the former mayor shut it down, but he didn't want to pursue it further because he said we're not in a position for that. And at that time, we were dealing with other stuff. I think, I'm not saying more important stuff, but we were discussing other issues at the time. And I personally, I think I just put it in the back burner, but never moved to push this further. But I do recall exactly what you're talking about.
Well, and the most important thing there is there's other people in the county that will help Gregory. All you got to do is cooperate with them.
I know with the drainage district as well too. I spoke with Steve Elliott, and I recall him telling me that we can get assistance from them free of charge as far as cleaning the drainage, and they'll reimburse it. If they can't do it for us, we can hire any contractor to come do it, and then they'll gladly reimburse it. But that's depending on the most important areas, not just every ditch throughout the city. So yeah, I know there's assistance out there. We just need to look for them, and that's why I pretty much call this meeting together, because I know with Robert's experience and knowledge and yourself, I know we can come up with something through the Texas Water Development Water Board or other agencies that can assist us. And I want to say that I think Councilman Flores recalls that email about the $40 million loan. So,
Yes, that's what I was going to say earlier, was that I remember talking to the mayor about it. He said it was a loan and that we weren't going to do a loan. He wanted to get a grant. And I'll say it, even though I shouldn't say it, but I said it.
Yeah,
Well, the water board doesn't give grants. I mean, they fund cities off of bonds that the state of Texas sells, and you pay a 0.5% above. A normal city pays a 0.5% above what the state sells it for. With Gregory's grading, they actually got it at, would have had it at a 0.5% below what the state borrows it from.
Right, do with the LMIs, I remember that.
Yeah.
The low moderate income.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and then there's also money on a yearly basis for loan forgiveness, but it's real competitive. But Wiley, that's, and unfortunately, apologize, but you know, that's why we need to look at all the numbers again and get it to Mr. Ayala, and then once we together, then we can formulate a plan on how much money we need, not just for, like you said, just not focused on wastewater, but it's not just wastewater, it's water and everything else. But that's why we need all the numbers to Mr. Ayala, and then get together and formulate a plan, and then figure out what's going to be the best route to pay for all that infrastructure. Because one of the big things, I mean, still, we don't want to put the city in any debt. It's, you know, so it's a big.
And this is Andre, everybody. So Chris and I have a lot of experience with the Texas Water Development Board. About 18 months ago, when we showed up at the city for the first time, we talked about this issue at length. So there are a variety of programs that we can explore with them for the wastewater financing project, and maybe others as applicable. Now, you know, it is a process, and we just have to understand, again, the big picture. So Somerset is part of the big picture, but we need to understand Somerset and everything else that the city has going on to craft a citywide plan with engineers, and then we can start running the numbers. And it's a matter of funding and timing also, because we don't want to wait for the water board, you know, to finance something in 18 months when we need that today. So it's a matter of those two things. And then we also need to understand that if the city takes on a water board loan, while yes, it could be at a very low subsidized interest rate, it's money that has to be repaid. And one of the things the city needs to understand is, if we take on this kind of debt, assuming the water board approves it in the first place, what does it mean for existing ratepayers if for whatever reason our expectations don't come to fruition? So there's a lot of implications and things that we need to think through before we advise the city on what the best course of action would be from a financing standpoint. But I think this discussion has been great, and a lot of the options have been outlined and put on the table for a wastewater financing solution. And again, you know, Wiley's project is just part of it. His involvement is critical, but we also have to understand what else beyond that is in there, so that we can say, okay, Robert, you know, you guide us on how do we engineer this thing, and then based on the engineering, we come up with the best financing solution for that.
Correct.
And we move forward. Now, I don't think this is going to take 18 months like it has been taking right now, Wiley. I can tell you that. If you have a lot of your information already put together, it's just a matter of myself and the new team members just to get up to speed on what's going on, and then discuss with the city what they really want to do, and move down the road. Here's what I understand that is a big picture concept. Wiley wants to bring a project, and the city wants to make a project happen. But we need to understand what the big picture implications are too. So that's big picture what we need to be looking at. And then the city, based on what I can see now, has put together a good team of professionals and consultants that will be guiding the city forward. And Wiley, again, you're going to be a partner to Gregory, so your involvement is critical for your success, and most importantly, Gregory's success.
Gotcha.
I totally agree, Andre. And you said it just like we discussed last week. The last thing we want to do is put a burden tax hike on the citizens or taxpayers. So we want to keep this as minimum as we can, and hopefully at 0 pennies cost to the citizens.
Has to be a win-win for everyone, right?
Exactly.
And
Well,
unfortunately, Wiley, I know, and I laugh because I know it's painful for you. I mean, I wasn't involved as you were, but it was a whole painful process that you had to go through to get to the point that you were at, and then to put that on hold and start over again. I know that's
Well,
not fun, but
maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but I mean, you know, the bottom line is I own 254 acres in Gregory right now, and my partner owns 200 acres. So we own 450 acres in Gregory that we got to do something with. And so
I think
I've
we're
got,
ready now. I think we're ready to move forward, Wally. I've been hearing from council and everybody else. So
okay. Well, I am too. Andre, if I could just say one thing, I'm looking at my schedule and I'm going to be tied up until 1 o'clock, but you can call me anytime after 1 o'clock that's available to you tomorrow.
I will do that, Wiley.
Okay.
Thank you, Wiley.
Thank y'all. Do we need anything else or?
Well, this was very informative. I thank everybody that joined this meeting. And at the same time, thank you, Odelia, and the rest of the council for having this discussion, because I know we sidetracked it a little bit from the main agenda, but it all relates to the wastewater treatment plant. So it's something that needed to be discussed, and hopefully from here on, we can all be in the same page, communicate and stay in like former said, 3 C's: communications, collaborations, and cooperations. So we can make this happen. I know we can. It's going to take work and teamwork with from everybody.
All righty.
Right.
Well, I'm going to sign off then. And, God bless y'all. Let's get to work.
All right. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Wiley.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so council members, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Yes,
To ask
No
for a
other
motion.
discussion?
yes. I make motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:26.
Okay, Councilman Martinez made motion to adjourn at 7:26. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Okay, Councilman Lopez second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everyone, and
Uh-huh.
have a good
Thank
night.
you. Yes, sir.
Councilor Chris, everybody, thank you so much. Odelia,
Thanks,
real quick,
everybody.
don't hang.
Oh, okay.
I kind of went blank already what I was going to discuss with you, but it was
I think somebody is still on the
Oh.
line.
the TML. I didn't get a chance to get online, but I remember talking to TML, which consultant, I can't remember right now. And I discussed with consultant from TML as far as a workshop. And I want to say that that's the person that told me that we needed a forum because it's considered a special meeting. So, man, I told her, her name wants to come up. Anyway, I remember telling her, well, we've had meetings in the past with just 3 because we thought it was okay. And she said, and it is because it's a workshop. You can't take action. But at the same time, a workshop is called by the mayor or mayor pro tem. It's considered a special meeting. So it's actually supposed to have 4 members present. Man, that's, I just wanted to be in a safe side. And that's why I made sure that Aurora was on board because.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, at least we got, and this was a good workshop. So at least we got it forward with just getting everybody on board.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all have a good night.
All right. Good
Good
night.
night.